And welcome back to Coaching with the Bible. This is episode 98, season 2, episode 44. We finished this week the book of Numbers, the book of Bamidbar, the fourth book of the 5 books of Moses. That's everywhere around the world. Finishing that book together this week with the reading of Maasei, the last portion in the book of Numbers. If you've been with me since the beginning of Coaching with the Bible, you are now 9/10 of the way through two readings of the 5 books of Moses. So congratulations to you, and congratulations to all of us to getting to episode 98. Our topic this week, the journey. The portion begins with a listing of 42 places where the people of Israel travel during their time in the desert. From the time they left Egypt to the time they enter the land of Israel. The Bible lists 42. Probably could have been more, could have been less, could have been none. But the Bible lists 42 specific locations. And when we think about all the places they've gone, admittedly, my mind did actually go to Dr. Seuss. One of my favorite Dr. Seuss books is Oh, the Places You'll Go. It's just wonderful. And if we want to talk about the journey of life, and we want to do it in perhaps the deepest, most philosophical way possible, probably I could stop talking now. I could read Oh, the Places You'll Go out loud to the group here who are gathering, and we would get there. Because the journey is, in actuality, the destination. I saw a beautiful quote by an English author by the name of Bruce Chatwin, who said the following: "Man's real home is not a house, but the road, and that life itself is a journey to be walked on foot." So when it is that we rest, or it is that we stop, or it is that we find a place to be comfortable, that's in fact the exception. But the rule of life, or life itself, is actually the travels, the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs, the victories and the defeats, the good and the bad. That's the journey. And that's life. And as Dr. Seuss says in the book, you'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with many strange birds as you go. So be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life's a great balancing act. That's the truth. And when the Bible then therefore tells us at the end of this book about all of the places that the people of Israel have gone, it's not just simply a memoir of their travels, but it's far deeper than that. And it's driving a message home to the people of Israel as they're about to enter their last few months in the desert before they enter the land of Israel, driving home some crucial lessons about the journey and about life. And so it's important for us when we think about as a coaching group, as a group that is always ever improving and appreciating that life is a balancing act, that's looking in every moment to become better in life and to perhaps enjoy life more. So appreciate all the stops along the way and not just the journey at the end. And so I want to share with you a thought that comes from a book known as the Sfat Emet. The Sfat Emet, or the Sfas Emes, depending on how you pronounce it, was written by Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh Leib Alter, the Ger Rebbe. He was the rabbi of the Ger Hasidim. It's a wonderful, wonderful work. And on this week's portion, he says the following idea. He says that a person is actually called a traveler. He's someone who is always walking. And he has to be always a person who is walking from step to step to step. And the people in the desert, for who this is actually written about, they continue to move from place to place, from step to step, from location to location, Because the reality of it is that every new location is a new battlefield. And as the Netivot Shalom, the Nesivos Shalom, I mentioned him many times, or Shalom Noach Berezovsky, who was the Slonomer Rebbe, the 80s and 90s, writes that at every location where the people of Israel went, and they rested or they stayed for a period of time, there was something that they had to pick up there. There was some aspect of holiness that they had to fix. There was some character trait that they had to work on in each of those locations. And sometimes it took a few days, and sometimes it took a few years. But at each location had its purpose. And if one was simply focused on, here's sort of the point, just the destination, then one would have lost the trees for the forest. Then one would have missed out on all of the hidden opportunities, the small victories, the small successes, in light of the fact that we were focused on the big destination at the end. And to appreciate that a person is always battling, is always walking. And it's not for the person to be resting, to be stopping on that path. Because the truth is, as you know and I know, that even if we stand still, life is still moving. The journey is still going. We're just probably not keeping pace. And so we have to get this sense when we talk about the journey, two things. One, the appreciation that all of life is the journey and that there are many destinations and locations along the way. And as the Netivot Shalom writes in another part of the article, the reality of it is that we need every one of those stops in life. That for whatever purpose it may be, again, the way he's writing it, and for the people of faith, religious folk, that whatever it is that God has put us into that place specifically, it is a place we cannot skip. It is an effort we cannot miss, because what we need to gain and learn in that location, in that time, in that place, is too valuable. And if we miss it, the next stop is effectively meaningless. And so we have to appreciate, with respect to the journey, that every stop along the way is crucial and vital and necessary. And to appreciate that at every moment, as the Sfat Emet is writing, the Rabbi Alter is writing, is that every step is a new battlefield. And that the person is continuing to move from location to location, from battle to battle, perhaps sometimes licking their wounds, but from battle to battle in the course of life. And so part one of what it is that it's important for us to appreciate here with respect to the journey is that all of that is true. Part two, with respect to appreciating that, is therefore, how do we do that better? How do we work in the space of the, let's call them the mini destinations along the way, the places we stop, or as Dr. Seuss talks, the places you'll go? And so this is very hard. Enjoying the process or enjoying the journey, I think, is extremely hard. And I don't think everyone does it particularly well, and I certainly don't either. This is one of those subjects that, in coaching with the Bible, that I feel more acutely and strongly that I'm working on at the same time. Sometimes I'm talking about a subject here that pertains to a lot of people, but it's not something that I'm battling or working on at the same moment. And sometimes I feel very tight to a subject, and it's very personal on some level, and one that I'm really working on and battling also with you at the same time. I don't shy away from it, and I don't hide from that being true, but this is one of those things. Because I'm an outcome guy. I think about the destination a lot. In my work, day to day, helping organizations raise money and leaders to be able to successfully raise more for the good that they're trying to do in the world, I am focused on the outcomes. I am focused on the results. And like everybody who's an employee somewhere, there are metrics. There are KPIs, we call them, key performance indicators, things that are measurables for how well we've done. And so the pieces along the way, admittedly, sometimes get lost for the bigger picture and the goal at the end. So it's very hard. So what do we do with that? How do we do that? How do we work on that? Because if you're going to be sort of outcome focused, so then you will be focused then only on what happens at the end, and you won't care necessarily how you get there, and it won't be maybe the best or most efficient way, as long as you get there. The alternative is to be process focused, to really focus on the specific tasks at hand and try not to think about the end at all. And that the outcome at the end is sort of the lagging indicator that if I performed all the tasks to their highest level and I succeeded in every one of the subtasks, then the indicator at the end should be a good result. That's sort of how people might think about that. So then what do you do in the spaces between that? How do you work on that? And so one of the things that I do for myself, and I've done here with you in Coaching with the Bible, when I talked about goals, was development of the process. And I've talked a lot about loving the process because partially I've been trying to convince myself of loving the process, but also partially because I do believe that that's true. That when we love the process, so then we're less focused on the outcomes. And we're getting the intrinsic hit from the sub-goals or the mini-goals in the process along the way, then we can suffer some difficult moments because we're focused on things that are happening later on. So one of the things that I do with leaders that I'm working with is I break down the goals. If the goal is to raise, let's say, $250,000, I want to break that down. How do we get to the first 25,000? How do we get to the first 100 donors? Let's get to 100 people. This week I was talking to a master class of coaches on the subject, and one of the things that we talk a lot about is the idea of helping organizations build up their peer community and get people to help them raise the money. You've all seen these kinds of campaigns. We do them, I think, thankfully, quite successfully for a lot of people in a lot of places. And in developing the process, one can get lost in the idea that I need 100 people or 200 people to take on a personal goal to raise money. Like, it seems impossible. And so one of the things that I work on with leaders is celebrating the mini goals and getting them a dopamine hit, that little excitement, a feeling of accomplishment that washes over them for a mini goal. And so if that's the big goal, is the large amount of money or a large amount of donors, we have to incrementally get there. And so I want them to focus on the task at hand with a mini goal. Let's set smaller goals, celebrate that smaller goal, and then we go from there. And for me, personally, that works really, really well. And in the work that I'm doing with these other leaders, I see that for them, it actually works quite well also. So it's an important sort of approach is to get, I would say, lost, for lack of a better term, inside the smaller pieces. Because there are a million things you could share here as to how do I love the process more? And there are a million things that you could talk about. So for me, the first one is this, is getting inside the space of the small accomplishments and giving yourself credit and celebrating the small victories. For example, that I do with a leader, when they share data with me and they show me their donor data, which seems like the most boring thing in the world for a lot of people, I get it, but I live inside a lot of donor data. But if they share organized data, no joke, I will applaud. I will stand up in the room if I'm in the room or if it's on a Zoom. I will stop the meeting and I will applaud them. I want them to appreciate the credit for having done something monumentally important, but also that feels for a lot of people insignificant and small. But the results are there. The goals will be accomplished because of that work. So giving credit for the small things, getting that mini goal that's a sub-goal of the bigger goal, really, really powerful. And you doing some sort of celebration. That's one thing that I like to do. The second thing that I like to talk through and work with people on is how you measure the progress. Because as much as you want to be focused on the outcome, and I think we should focus on outcomes, and it's important to have outcomes and goals and destinations. I believe firmly in the idea that goals create reality. At work, one of the pillars of our work is goals create reality. That goals are the fundamentals of human motivation. But tie the bigger goal and the smaller goal together and measure the linkage and the connection in terms of that progress. I talk about that earlier this year when we did goal setting and our annual review. But I think it's really important to sort of read when you can see the linkage between the accomplishment of the smaller goal and how that affects the bigger goal, and you can measure with one against the other and connect one to the other, you'll feel like you're actually progressing. You feel like your performance is improving. You'll be more inspired to go forward. You'll feel like this is working. I'm getting to where I need to go. And so measuring the small increments of progress against itself for the small goal, but against the bigger goal, not always looking at the bigger goal, but keeping it in mind, using those measurements to help you improve your performance. So let's say you're trying to get better at a distance run. Or let's say, you're trying to do a better job public speaking. And so you want to improve your performance. Oh, I said it better this time. That story came out better this time versus last time. And appreciate those things. Step into the spaces of appreciating the metric that you're using for your own success. So those are two. So first is celebrating the little. Two is the appreciation of how the measure works. These things help you on the path, because even if it's not going well at a certain moment, you can sort of appreciate that this is part of that journey. Those who ultimately make it look effortless in life put in a lot of effort. So that deliberate practice and all those other things. And the third thing that I think to think about when we're talking about and to work off of as a method to improve the journey, list out everything that you like about pursuing each goal. I saw this on a blog website called The Disciplined Rebel. Go figure where I find these articles. But I think there's a lot of genius in a lot of the blogs that are out there. Some of them are, worthless, but some of them really have a lot of good content and are worth looking for and reading, signing up for even their newsletters if you have time to read them. But I think it's important here on his list of 11 things to do to make the journey more livable and enjoyable is to think about the pluses of all of the goals that you're trying to pursue. In coaching, I talk a lot about the use case or the business case, plus minus, pro con, about doing something. Here, I want you to forget for a moment on the negative and focus only on the positive. What are the things I like about this? What are the things that I like about this goal? Because I think that what happens is that if you lose sight for a minute, you can come back to some of the things that you really like about it. Or if it's getting you down or it's beating you down or it's not working, you don't feel improvement happening. The muscle memory is not getting better. The jump shot's not improving. Your distance isn't getting faster. Your writing isn't getting better. You can focus on some of the things that you like in that work, even if it's not at that moment. And that, I think, helps you along the path of the journey. The fact that I know what I need to do, the fact that I know what work I have to accomplish to get to that bigger goal is really what helps to push the person to that ultimate goal. And so this is what I think when we think about the journey and what we're talking about here in the Bible and coaching is, of course, part one, again, is appreciating that the journey is a journey we're all going on. We all have to go on. And that every step of the way is a step we have to take and a step we have to go through and things that we have to pick up along the way in that moment, in that battle. That could be for us a few days, a week, a month, even years in our life we have to go through. That's part one. But part two tells us that when we're talking about the journey, that we have the opportunity to not just enjoy the end of that journey at the destination, but we have the ability, to make the journey more palatable, but also to make it more enjoyable by setting up metrics and celebrations and focus on the likes during the course of the journey that help us in the journey, to enjoy the journey, to appreciate the journey, and not just worry and focus and think about the end. Because as Dr. Seuss also said, and with this we'll close, don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. That is Coaching with the Bible for this week. See you next week as we begin the 5th book of the 5 books of Moses. Have a good one.